Hello and welcome back to the channel, guys. My name is Dan and I'm here to bring you another video. In this one, we're going to be looking at transfer targets, specifically in the defender area, as I think most of us in the game, especially the most engaged managers, of course, had Reece James in our unlimited drafts. Now, if that is you, that this is the scenario that we didn't really want, but it is something that we kind of expected, right? We knew that it was going to be a risk going with him only just returning from injury. And of course, sorry to see him out again until around February time. So we're looking at replacements for him. It's 6 people that I've got on this watch list here. So hopefully it's useful to you guys. Of course, if you're new to the channel, then do please consider subscribing to me. Plenty of content through the season so far and plenty more to come. Of course, if you like the video as well, then smash that button below. So let's have a look at the first option here. I will caveat all of these picks, first of all, with the fact that it is going to be team dependent, of course. There are certain rotations that are very, very positive. There's certain individuals here that statistically are better than others. It's just really going to be a lot down to your team and, of course, your personal preference. This is just a guide based on the stats that all of these defenders are providing. So number one on the list here is Perisic. Now, to be honest, the weakest part of Perisic's ownership really is the rotation risk. We don't know necessarily how many minutes he's going to get under Conte. What was positive, though, is that he got a full game against Brentford so soon after, obviously, that third place playoff when he played with Croatia. So that, to me, speaks volumes. I don't know how much you can read into it. It is always going to be maybe a little bit of a tricky pick because of how many options Conte has. But I think it's positive, to be honest, right? The start of it is positive. It's good news that he's got this many minutes. He's scored a total of 46 points, and his numbers are really, really positive. He's exactly what we want for a wing-back, and to be honest, look at them. I mean, 0.33 expected assists, right? He's on set pieces. It's worth noting Spurs are the top of the table in terms of set-piece goals. They've actually scored 10 so far this season, and of course, Perisic does provide direct free-kick delivery. He also provides corners, and in general, just when he gets in behind and he's obviously playing that width, his crosses are normally very, very positive, giving the likes of Harry Kane and Kulusevski to obviously attack those, and even Heung-min Son to some degree. So, you know, we've got a lot of output potential with this man. It is just that risk, of course, of minutes. In terms of fixtures, they're very, very positive over the next 4, except, of course, for the double game week. Those fixtures aren't necessarily very positive, but of course it is still a double game week. So something that we could consider. It's not guaranteed still at this point that game week 20 is going to be a double for them because of the FA Cup. But at this point, even the Villa and the Crystal Palace fixtures could arguably be worth targeting for him. So I really like his stats. I really like him as a pick. Yes, he's a bit risky, but that's why he's kind of made this spot. Overall, in terms of transfers as well, it's just worth noting that he is net transferred out. So overall, if you look at the transfers in for the round and the transfers out, ultimately he is looking like more of a sell than a buy. But for me, I think that's on the back of course, it's a bit of knee-jerk reaction really to the fact that he only scored the 1 point against Brentford. So moving into the next player here, then we have Fabian Schar. Now, this could easily be Botman as well. I just basically picked one of them. I'm not going to show you statistics for all of them. And of course, Kieran Trippier would be my 100% number one pick from Newcastle, hence why he's on this thumbnail. Ultimately, though, he is so popular in terms of ownership that it doesn't really make sense, I think, to show all of his statistics. We know how good of a pick he is. If you haven't got him already, then I think he's the first number one replacement I would go with. As an alternative, though, if you want a cheaper option or you want to double up on Newcastle's defence, then Schar could be an option at 4.9, or of course Botman at 4.4 if you want to save that extra $500,000. We see his total points tally here, 73, providing a tremendous amount of value. Botman's in a very similar boat. I just think Schar maybe offers that slight bit more attacking threat in terms of expected goal involvement, but when we look at the data overall, still quite low on the table, and he's only scored 1 goal this season. In terms of chances created, he's also not particularly very high up. That being said, based on the fixtures, I think he's a very, very solid pick. Of course, there's no double game weeks here, which is maybe putting some people off, but I think ultimately Leeds, Arsenal's obviously tricky in 19, but then Fulham, Crystal Palace and West Ham, there's only 2 fixtures that are home fixtures across the next 5. But I think, to be honest, Crystal Palace haven't really restarted very well. They're definitely kind of a team to be looking at. West Ham are in a relegation fight. Of course, Fulham, they're pretty much flying, but I think at St James's Park, it's going to be a tricky fixture for them to go to. Leeds, arguably, yes, they could also score a goal, but I think defensively, Newcastle have just showcased such solidity that it's just, I think at this point, worth the potential double up. And you can see on the transfers overall, net-wise, he is on the lower end of transfers in, but there are a lot of you that have put faith in that second Newcastle defender if you already own Trippier. So I think he's a positive pick. Personally, I would probably go for Botman, but I just wanted to showcase Shar's statistics to essentially just compare if you like. Of course, then our third option here is this man, Gabriel. Now, for me personally, there is, of course, the double game weeks ahead of us. We know that game week 21 is possibly likely to be Manchester United and Everton, so their fixture from 22 being moved. But ultimately, I think, when you look at all of their fixtures, it's hard to see where all of those could be clean sheets. I mean, he has very, very good attacking threat and output. We can see that by the XG. He's at 0.15. I just feel like, I don't know, Brighton could be a tricky fixture in itself. At the Amex, we can see what they're like. Newcastle will fly in. They're in the top 4, so that's going to be tricky, even though it is a home fixture. We know then with the London derby, as it's an away fixture, that could easily be a sort of 2-2 score draw there. And then Manchester United as well, who are also bidding for that top 4 spot. So I think that run of fixtures over the next 4, even if you take into consideration their double game weeks in the future, Arsenal, I'm just really on the fence with them still. If they've obviously already conceded against West Ham, albeit a penalty, it wasn't from open play. I think that these next 4, it's even more unlikely that we get to see clean sheets from them. So I'm hesitant with Arsenal. The reason why I've put him on the list, though, is because it's worth mentioning if you already own some of the other players or teams that you might not want to sort of double up on or go for, then it is a long-term option because you can pretty much hold him. You may want to bench him and just look at your personal team rotation with him. But I think ultimately it's from 21 or 22 onwards that I would look at buying him. So again, my personal preference here is that I probably wouldn't go for him as a Reece James replacement, but that's not to say his underlying data isn't good, because it is. It's very, very positive. We know that they're basically the second best defence in the league. He's got exceptional XG based on being for a centre-back ultimately. And of course, net transfers overall, people are looking to bring him in, and I can see why. So he's an option. I just don't necessarily think he's the immediate Reece James replacement. We then look at we've got 3 more players now. The next one on the list here is Cucurella. Of course, he's already risen in price to 5.2 now, so if you caught that price rise, then great. Again, I'm not necessarily convinced with his attacking output that we want from a fullback, essentially. He's only scored 37 points so far. I still think there is a Potter lottery. I'm not too sure when Ben Chilwell will be back. I think it is probably still going to be quite long term. I don't think he's yet in training again. But he's only actually managed 2 assists, although they were against tricky opponents. I think one of them was against Spurs. I can't remember which the other one was against. But the fixtures are a bit mixed, really. Of course, I think the main reason people have been bringing him in, which has, of course, triggered the price rise, is the Forest fixture in 18, and then, of course, that double in 19, one of those fixtures being Fulham. I think the difficulty is, though, even with the Fulham fixture in the double, I don't necessarily see the clean sheet. The reason why I had Reece James in my team originally was because of the attacking prowess and the potential that even at at Stamford Bridge against City and then at Craven Cottage against Fulham, I expected that Reece James may get an assist, even though his clean sheet potential would have been maybe a little bit lower. So I don't particularly think these are very, very easy fixtures. Then going into 20, he's got Palace, and then a tricky fixture again in Liverpool away in 21. So it's a really mixed bag. Again, I think it's going to be very, very team dependent on your rotation. Are you happy to bench him against Liverpool potentially? Have you got enough cover? I don't necessarily feel that 5.2 million, as with Gabriel, is a huge investment. So it's not really that, it's not too much of a risk. I just feel like, again, when you look at his numbers, he isn't ultimately the direct replacement I would go for. I mentioned this in my previous video as well, in my team selection at the end. I said that, yes, Chelsea are an option to go sideways, but I just feel like from the teams I've already showcased, not only based on fixtures, but of course double game weeks as well, I think ultimately there's just better options. So, good luck if you've gone with him. I don't necessarily think he's a horrible pick because of the double game week, but I think that's maybe blinding a few of us really in terms of transfers in. Then let's have a look at the next option here. Maybe a bit of an obvious one because he is in my team. He's of course had a price rise again. It is this man Luke Schar. I just think that with the situation where Martinez is now back, we had Varane play, which was really, really positive against Forest. I think we're not going to see that makeshift Luke Schar centre-back position anytime soon. Of course, Malacia got a good run out there as well, and I think he'll primarily be used in the Europa fixtures, and potentially just cup fixtures in general, right? So I don't think Luke Schar will lose his place to him, although I do think it is very, very good competition for him. I think these next few fixtures are fantastic. Wolves away and Bournemouth at home. I think we've got a really, really good opportunity here to push into that top four. And his expected assist numbers are really, really positive as well. 0.18, although his XG, of course, is pretty much insignificant here. He's only managed 2 assists, but it's the chances created and the big chances created that we need to pay attention to here. 3 big chances and 13 chances created across the season so far. And I think, to be honest, originally my plan was potentially to sell him for an Arsenal asset come game week 20 when we play Manchester City. But I think actually, after a bit more review, I think it's quite easy to manage a rotation for him against those 2 tricky fixtures and then hold him from 22 onwards because, again, Man United's fixtures are looking really, really positive long term. So, again, I see him as an asset not only just for the short term, but from game week 22 onwards as well, I think he's an easy hold. And at 4.9 million, even if you didn't catch the price rise from 4.8, I still think he's a tremendous value pick. And then finally, last but not least, it's the differential pick, something that I do on these watch lists or transfer target videos. And it's something I've had a question or a couple of questions from the community based on West Ham. And I do feel like, yes, their fixtures on paper look really, really positive. This man here has created so many chances. I think he's about 3rd or 4th down on the list in terms of chances created. He's created 30. 3 of them, of course, big chances as well. The issue that I have with him mainly from that attacking threat point of view is that nobody seems to be getting on the end of it, right? Skamaka is out at the moment. Antonio, of course, he did play at the recent fixture, but he didn't provide anything. And I think really from a West Ham point of view, their defensive prowess hasn't looked very, very good, right? So when you're bringing in a defender, yes, we do love those attacking outputs as well as clean sheets. Trippier seems to be the god of that this season. But I don't feel like West Ham are on that same calibre to be able to put trust in him. That's why ultimately he is just a differential pick. If he's someone that you think over the next 4 or 5 fixtures could do really well, then absolutely go for it. 4.8 million, he's $1 million cheaper than Reece James. He has definitely got that potential. We look at his numbers, it's only a little bit shorter than Luke Schar overall. And of course, those next 4 are really, really good. Those fixtures between 19 and 21 specifically, I think are going to be vital to West Ham's survival bid, right? You've got Leeds, Wolves and Everton, all of which are teams in and around the relegation area. So West Ham need wins there. They need to be putting in shifts. They need defensive prowess. They need to be scoring goals. And Cresswell could be part of that. There's a lot of set pieces that he takes. So I think, yes, at 1.6% owned, he is at this stage just a differential pick for me. But it is worth noting that I think he could do well, right? So that's going to wrap up all 6 options for you guys. I hope that you found the content useful. As I say, some of this is going to be very, very team dependent. So I don't necessarily like honing in on individuals. Sometimes it is just teams rather than individuals, as mentioned with Botman and Schar. Gabriel, we didn't mention Ben White, of course, as well. That could have been an option. Even Saliba, once he gets past the kind of 19 games played mark with those 4 yellow cards, I feel like they could be options, right? So I haven't done a statistical breakdown of each individual, but again, I hope this gives you a little bit more insight into how these players are doing and what to expect from them over the next few weeks. Of course, as mentioned at the beginning, if you are new to the channel and you liked what you saw, then please do consider hitting that subscribe button. We are very close now to that marker of 500, which will be an excellent milestone to have reached by the end of 2022. So I'd very much appreciate if you can get me there. And of course, if you enjoy the content as well, guys, smash that like button below. Of course, I'll be doing a live stream for this game week as well. So tune into that at 5 p.m. and hopefully I will see you then or in the next video soon, guys. Take care.